Hi, and welcome to CryptoBiography. I'm your host, Brandon Starr. This is episode 428 of CryptoBiography, and it's part 2 of The Spotter. And here we go. Over time, however, he found himself becoming disenchanted with his work. Though he could never talk about it, he was constantly in other countries, hunting down men that he only could assume pose some sort of vague threat to the United States or its allies. It started to feel a lot like doing someone's political bidding more than actually helping. So, although it was rare for a full scout sniper to fail to re-enlist, he found himself doing just that. He was glad enough that he had never lost a teammate to enemy fire in all his missions, and his heat sight was a big part of that. But now he needed something different to do with his life. Still, the problem was he now needed to make a living, and his main set of skills wasn't very conducive to making money in a crime-free way. But he learned that there are some niches he could fill. With his patience, ability to stake out an area, and knowledge of how to both attack and defend areas, he picked up jobs in security, protecting wealthy clients from dangers, real and imagined. He kept up his free weight exercise and his hiking and walking and was still in great shape. But he only rarely took actual bodyguard duties. Usually he did scouting jobs, watching wide areas, often with teams, when needed, and when not doing that, he was starting to do security consulting, letting people know where the holes in their defenses were. The money was very good, and a couple of years on, he was doing so well that he was nearly ready to buy his own house, even in the inflated markets of Southern California, where he'd ended up. One job he remembered well. He was tasked with making a new compound safe. He met the owner, one Jonah Stapleton, and shook his hand. It was a very nice house with some land around it in the Hollywood Hills. Guy guessed that it would be pushing $20 million in value, maybe more. I've always been careful about security, and now that I've made some serious money, I find myself needing the best, he told Guy on first meeting. I've had one security company come in and set things up. That felt good for a while, but then someone got on the grounds. And though no real harm was done, we know that they got into the house and then got away without being caught. So I find myself needing another set of expert eyes to look over my security. Not a problem, sir, Guy said. That's why I'm here. And he was as good as his word. He spent weeks going over the current security situation, camping out himself at night, trying to catch the guards napping, and so on. But something felt strange. For one thing, he noticed that after each time he met Jonah, Jonah found an excuse to break away, and he seemed to always be on the phone. But what that meant, he wasn't able to suss out. Part of his service was to stake out the place himself, both from the point of view of the people already performing security and also on his own, trying to find gaps that perhaps no one else could find. He started with joining the security on their patrols and watching their security cams with them. Though his clients were often somewhat paranoid, Jonah Stapleton was watching him more closely than any other client he'd had. He didn't feel threatened exactly, but it was another question mark. It was when he was out scouting that he finally saw something truly strange. He'd found what he had considered the most likely weak point in the security. He had set up a sort of game where he would try to infiltrate that night. The guards would try to stop him. They were, for this period of time, using blanks, though they would keep a magazine of live rounds just in case. He had inspected each guard's weapon personally to make sure they weren't accidentally loaded with live rounds. He had infiltrated partway into the grounds when it happened. He was about to make one of his next big moves toward the house. The guards had moved past, and he knew the angle to take to avoid the cameras when he spotted something. It wasn't in front of him, but behind him. His habit of constantly checking all around him had paid off, as it had so many times. It was a person. It had to be. But it couldn't be one of the guards. None of them had nests in trees. So who the hell was this? And that's the end of the episode for this week. Hope you're enjoying it. If you have any comments or questions on this episode or previous episodes, cryptobiography@gmail.com, or hit us up on Facebook or Blue Sky. And thanks for listening. Words and music copyright 2025, Brandon Starr, all rights reserved. Characters and events are fictional, fictionalized, or satirical.